We've talked a lot about Season 4 on this channel. I posted a bunch of my own videos on it. Let's see what Marcellian has to say here. 10.2.6 Season 4 will be huge. Let's see if we've missed anything so far and what's coming in Season 4.
Season 4 is dropping in with all of the details that you need to know to decide if you're gonna play or not, because we have big gear changes, big dungeon changes, pretty big raid changes.
There are a lot of changes.
About how the legendaries will work if you have yours, or if
it's good though. I think if there's ever a time for Blizzard to experiment, you know, with how the Mythic Plus system works or rating or anything, it's the end of an expansion. That's the time where you can, you know, mess around a little bit, see what you want to do going forward. So I'm glad Blizzard's doing this stuff.
You want yours, tier sets, Omni tokens, and everything that you want in what's looking probably the best Dragonflight season yet, maybe the best season in the last couple of expansions.
It could be. A lot of this stuff looks great.
We're going to be looking at the dungeons as well. Now, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about the dungeon revamps that they're doing and the way that the difficulty works. And this is all well and good when it comes
this was a good thing.
Heroic and Mythic Zeros being a little bit more impactful in terms of providing you with gear upgrade options, especially when it comes to getting a higher eye level overall character. However, the eye levels across the board will be increased anyway. So what really matters
they basically did a stat squish or level squish of the Mythic Plus system, right? 0 is going to mean more now. They're going to eliminate a bunch of the in-betweens. Like, what the hell was the difference between a plus 12 and a plus 13? There was nothing. So now really it's your plus 10 becomes your plus 20, and it goes up and down from there based on where you are. So it's going to go 0 to it's the right way to do it. They squished it down. All the keys are more meaningful now. The loot is more meaningful, and the whole system just seems a bit better.
The fact that Mythic Plus will have its affixes placed on +2, 5, and 10 instead of +2, 7, and 14, which are now currently, making them slightly harder, the dungeons themselves, which is a contrast to what we've had in Season 3, where the dungeons were easier than Season 2, which was easier than Season 1, which I suspect was a big contributor to getting more people into Mythic Plus. So I'm not yet sold on how the Mythic Plus system will work.
No, I believe, it's no timer on a +0. It basically gives you a chance to kind of introduce yourself to Mythic Plus, which I think is a great thing. You can get into Mythic Plus, no timer, learn the paths, maybe learn how to tank it right, learn how to heal it right. It's a good intro into Mythic Plus, because really the timer is certainly an added, it's a pressure moment. And it affects who gets invited to groups and stuff. People will care less if there's no timer involved. So that's a great thing I think they did.
But the good thing about it is that when it comes to rewarding crests and everything that you're going to be using for upgrading your items, Mythic Plus 2 will start just rewarding worm crests off the bat, so you don't have to go through the entire crest system to get your gear. Now, if you're just farming like average to high-end level gear, which is probably what most people would want to get anyway, this is most likely better, since you will have access to useful crests instead of having to waste all of your time on whelps and drake crests and things like that, which is obviously really good, since it makes it a little bit simpler to actually gear your character instead of having to learn what level at which Mythic Plus do you stop getting whelps and you start getting drakes. So actually you used to only get drakes, not whelps anymore, or did you? I don't even know.
The whole naming system, Jesus Christ. I wish they just called it heroic crests, mythic crests, normal crests. That would have been so much better. And as much as I shit on the naming system of the crests, because I still have not mastered it till this day, I have to say the crest system overall from Dragonflight is a W. I like the crest system a lot. I feel like it's made content relevant. It's made you able to get mythic level gear, right? If you grind things out a little bit, you do things right. Plenty of ways to convert crests into better crests. All that stuff. That whole system's been really good. It's been a good way to bypass the fact that mythic rating is completely broken and a piece of shit part of the game. At least you can still get gear at that item level, even though really mythic rating is completely inaccessible to the majority of players.
That's how convoluted it is, and you have to go through all of that crest system. But that's gone. You just have worms and aspects, insofar that we know at the moment. And of course, if you've missed any prior news regarding the Mythic Plus dungeon pool in the next season, we're gonna have all of the Dragonflight dungeons confirmed and actually tuned.
This is fine. This is fine. The dungeon pool is fine. What I do think they should have done is this is how the expansion should start. I think when you got all the new dungeons and it's exciting and everyone's, it's part of the new expansion, I feel like the first season in every expansion should be this, all the new dungeons. And then you start to parse it up after that. And I feel like the last the last season of every expansion should be something cool, like a throwback. Like, I wish the last season would be like Scarlet Monastery Mythic Plus, Dead Mines Mythic Plus, like that kind of shit. Like a World Tour Mythic Plus season. That to me would be the coolest way to finish out an expansion, whereas I feel like they reversed it. Because if you guys remember the first season of Mythic Plus, we were all like, oh, why are we going back to old dungeons? We have all these new ones that we're not even doing yet. So I wish, I hope going forward that's what they do, but what are the odds they watch Samiccus video and decide, hey, yeah, that guy's right.
Dungeons confirmed and actually tuned. Actually, some pretty good tuning changes, which I'm not going to go into right now because there's going to be so many more in the next couple of weeks, since we're actually going to have Mythic Plus testing this week, which we're also going to do on stream. We can check it out and, hop in some keys with us. But since a lot of things will change, it's pointless to put it out now. Let's just kind of take a more abstract view of the thing, that the dungeons will just get better and more fun. Also easier, because most of these so far seem to be nerfs on top of the multiple trinket reworks from the dungeon set pool that we've talked about, or that we mentioned rather last week, which I'm still not going to mention now because once again, these will constantly change.
Right.
Again, the takeaway is they're going to probably be more competitive or more interesting to use and not be super annoying or useless, because gearing actually matters in the next season. Obviously, it matters in all seasons. However, we have confirmed that we will have the dinar system that we had in Shadowlands. Now, if you haven't played Shadowlands, you might not know what I'm talking about.
Yes, it is now called the bullion system. The bullion system, and it's going to be actually an upgrade from the dinar system. It's actually much better. We get more pieces. We get more gear now. It's going to be nice. We're going to go business.
What this means is that
best
you
in
will
slot
be able
everything.
to loot a specific currency that, by doing the Season 4 content, that you can use to buy gear, mostly raid gear. But if we're going to use Shadowlands last season as an example, we're likely going to just see a lot of raid gear in terms of trinkets, maybe cantrip weapons, aka weapons that have a specific effect, that are specifically cool, and not just stat sticks. We can assume that the dinar system, or the new name is Antique Bronze Bullion.
Yeah, the bully. Yeah. I don't know where they get these names from.
Dinar was so much easier to say.
Yeah, dinar was easier. Where do you get it from? You're going to get it from faded raiding. You're going to get it from clearing faded raids. That's how you'll get it.
Why?
I know.
Anyway,
the naming,
now with the new bullion / dinar system, as much as we know so far, you'll be able to acquire gear and be able to upgrade it to the max seasonal eye level instead of what we had before, and you will not need to actually clear a set amount of heroic or mythic.
Not Malden Brewski. Not only will you be able to buy Ash Cumder, you will be able to buy it and then upgrade it. He's going to get to that, I'm sure, but you're going to be able to max the shit out of your character in the next season.
Bosses to be able to acquire
those
levels in your upgrade system,
Helicopter
like we had
dick.
back in Shadowlands, but you'll be able to have access to those by just, having the actual currency, which is of course still crests. And we will have a new track of upgrading items, which is the Awakened track, which has 14 ranks. Well, actually it has 12 ranks for normal items up until eye level 528. And for the last couple of eye levels, 532 and 535, will be reserved for specific end raid boss items like those special trinkets.
But you will be able to upgrade your gear up to this item level through the aspect crest system. So you'll be able to buy stuff with your bullion, right? And then upgrade it with the myth crests, whatever the fuck they're called. Super Drakey boy crests. And you'll be able to push your shit all the way up to that item level. It's pretty good.
And rings that always dropped at a higher item level than all of the other items in the raid. Stuff like the Seal of Filial Duty, Nelthorax, which is the Hunter Bow, confirmed to be a 532, most likely the best ranged weapon, period. The Cloak from Sarkareth, the class trinkets from
the rare items.
The trinkets from Farak, and so on, which actually maybe not so on. I think these are all of them that can go to 535. And with these, we can probably assume that the legendary will go to that eye level as well. The legendaries have been confirmed for a while that they will be relevant in Season 4 in two ways. First of all, you'll still be able to loot the legendaries, which is important for people who haven't gotten their legendary yet.
God. People who haven't gotten their legendary yet, yeah. I was sitting here with 35 bad luck protection, still trying to loot this piece of shit. I'd like to loot it so I can upgrade it in the next season. That'd be nice.
Maybe you want to work
Yeah,
on
that
it
burned.
now, since, for instance, if you're an evoker and you want a Juro, it's probably easier to do Abyss now than it would be next season. Although next season you can do Abyss on both the new Fated, which we're gonna go to it, level of the raid, or the old one, which is going to be tremendously easier. Either way, you'll be able to still acquire the legendaries as normal, and on top of it, if you have the legendary now, or if you are looting it, you'll be able to also purchase the Scale of Awakening with the bullion, which will first take your legendary to 502 item level, after which you'll be able to use crests as normal to upgrade the legendary as you would any regular item.
Yeah, so I was a bit confused about this because I'm like, what do you mean item level 502? What it is if you currently have the legendary, you will buy this Scale of the Awakening, right, with your bullions. That'll take it to 502. And once you've done that, you've unlocked the ability to upgrade it up to the 532 or whatever the highest item level is via the crest system. So that'll basically take it from what its current form is and put it into the faded, or the it's not faded right now, it's awakened form of the weapon, and then you can upgrade it, which is great.
Which is great because
doesn't apply
it
to
doesn't
Sam.
imply
Yeah.
another
I know.
farms of Super Bloom and paying hundreds of thousands of gold on the auction house for materials. You'll just be able to upgrade it, which is great. It's something
Yeah,
that
thanks for
I
reminding me.
advocated of having from the beginning, so we don't have to do this convoluting grinding system that was a little bit boring and tedious and also very expensive.
morning.
Choose one, tedious or expensive. Both are but we can assume that the legendaries will get to at least 528 as a normal item, and since legendaries usually have higher item level than everything else, and the end boss trinkets and rings and all of that are 535, we can probably assume that they're gonna go a little bit higher, maybe close to 540,
540?
since legendaries are
Damn.
historically the highest
That'd
item
be
level
huge. Big
item
dick.
in the game, which, you know, is great because legendaries are cool, and if you have yours, then rejoice, you'll still be able to use it. You don't need to reform it or recraft it or anything like that. On top of all of this, of course, we will have the new Omni token that will drop from the raids in the new season. And going into this, the new raids are basically the Dragonflight.
Yeah, if you don't know what the Omni token is, it is a classless, specless token that will allow you to buy a piece of tier gear at the new high item level. So this will drop from the final boss and Fated raid, and it'll just be an open roll. The entire raid can roll on it, and no matter your class or spec, everybody will roll. Whoever wins it gets to take it and buy a new piece of tier gear based on the level of Fated raid you just ran. So if you ran it on Heroic, you can loot a piece of tier gear. You can use it to get a piece of tier gear. I think that's like 528 or something like that.
New raids are basically the
Whatever the
Dragonflight
new
raids,
item
but
level
they
is
will have the
based on what you
Awakened
just did.
status, which is what Shadowlands had for their Fated raids. Now we will call them Awakened raids. And they will rotate, as contrary to what we believed a week or two ago, where it seemed like they will all be available at all times. But nope, they will be on rotation. So 1 week we will have Awakened the Mirdrasil, where we're going to fight the new raid on the Awakened difficulty, which is, you know, higher than what the current
Razagath
Mirdrasil
Awakened is
is,
gonna be
but also
fucking
rewards
shit.
all the new gears and new high levels.
We have
Same
a
with
realm to destroy.
Hungry Hippo, thank you for the follow, man. Welcome to our Scourge.
Vault of the Incarnates and Abyss. They will go on a week-by-week rotation, which is something that's a little bit controversial because not a lot of people vibed with this. On one hand, you would just have to like reprogress every raid every week, and then you have about 2 weeks pause in actually playing the raid because you're just going through the other two, and then you have to go back into it and kind of remember the mechanics.
Yeah.
On the plus side, the way Shadowlands dealt with this, not as successfully as maybe some people would have liked, so maybe we'll see it done a little bit better this time. We had certain affixes in the raids that essentially trivialized the fight to a large extent, to the point where you could just kill like higher difficulty bosses way more than in a regular season.
If you didn't do a Fated raiding and Shadowlands, basically there were these cool mechanics that were like a kiss curse mechanic. So like one of them was this cool lantern would pop up, right? And the entire raid would have to burst it down, beat the shit out of it, because if the timer finished ticking on it, it would explode and do raid damage. But if the raid got it down, which usually we did, then it would create this buff for the entire raid, like a heroism buff, and then the entire raid could blast the boss really hard. So it was really cool stuff. It was the kind of stuff that I said I wish they'd put in Mythic Plus, rather than just have these annoying mechanics you got to do. The kiss curse stuff is great because when you do it, first of all, it gets everybody to focus on it and do it, and then second of all, it creates this cool moment where the entire raid is just super empowered and you just beat the shit out of the boss. It was a lot of fun.
Raid pushing, meaning that the awakened raids are probably going to get
it was cool.
significantly easier the more we go into the season, the more gear you get, and the more these affixes are going to end up stacking if they're going to do the same thing, which I think they should, because keeping the same level of difficulty on awakened raids as opposed to normal raids, I mean, there's not enough time because there's no consistent progress on it since you have to wait 2 weeks on a pause rotation to get back into the same raid before or reprogress 3 raids in the same season. That's just a little bit too much. So most likely they're going to be relegated to fun style content where just go in, smash bosses, have loot, which is ironically
at the end of an
some of the
expansion.
most fun times I have had raiding in Shadowlands, and definitely it's looking like it's going to be one of the most fun times raiding in Dragonflight either, which
Agreed.
probably says something about raid design in general. But we're not going to go into that anymore. The Omni token will also be rewarded.
He's totally right. You know what it says about raid design? That a raid doesn't have to be hyper difficult to be fun. Yeah, sometimes they're actually the opposite. Sometimes when a raid is a bit easier, it's more fun. Yeah, I don't know, Blizzard should take some notes from themselves on that one.
From the raids, and you'll get it, and you'll be able to purchase the new tier. Now, as you may have been aware of, the new tier sets that we're going to have in Season 4 have been voted on by the community, which is something that has never happened before.
That's right, I completely forgot we did that.
Because in Shadowlands, we only had tier set in the last raid, so that was the only tier set that we were going to play with in the season. But now, since we've had 3 raids worth of tier sets, players have voted on their respective tier bonus for each spec and also tier appearance for each spec. So you might get a Abyss tier bonus with a Vault of the Incarnate aspect on it from the actual vendor, which, I mean, it's great. It's great that we've been given this power to choose our own fate for next season, and the majority of players have voted for the strongest and in some cases the most fun tier set that they have had through Dragonfly, which is great. If we're not going to have a new raid with a new tier set, might as well let us choose the one that we enjoyed the most over the course of Dragonfly, which I think is a pretty good idea considering, and I do feel like I need to say this because some people still don't get it yet, Season 4 is not a new raid tier. It's essentially filler content to keep us in for War Within.
Yeah.
Sure, it would be nice to not need this and just get a new raid or just get War Within quicker. I agree.
I think that's their plan going forward. The expansions are going to come quicker. This is probably the last, I would say it's probably the last season of faded, style rating that we're ever going to get, because the next couple expansions in the World Soul Saga are going to come much harder and faster. That's for sure. That's their plan. That was exactly what they said at BlizzCon. So, take this faded rated season for what it is, do it, have fun with it. I think it's going to be a fun season. Holy kids, you think this season's going to be fun, but you think you're in the minority? I don't think so. I think a lot of people are excited about it. At least from the YouTube videos I posted so far, the comments seem positive. Everyone seems kind of excited for this, and maybe it's kind of building up the hype for the next expansion, because we know that's coming soon. Alpha should be dropping, any week now, because that's basically how the calendar lines up. So all of this is exciting. We'll get Alpha and Beta in this season, and then the War Within will be just around the corner.
We don't really live in that world, and instead of having a Mirdrasil for 6 more months, or no, maybe 5 more months until War Within hits, I'd rather just play through all-time bestsellers or best hits of Dragonfly.
That's probably what it is, holy
and
kids,
just
it's your
go
guild.
through that content a little bit easier with a little bit more power, which is the power fantasy that people enjoy in RPGs, and that's what you're going to be doing in Season 4.
Yeah,
which
just going big.
That's great. I mean, I love it.
Helicopter.
Hopefully you love it too. And now, on top of all of this, which is something that we don't usually cover, there's plenty of achievements, mounts, and transmogs that you can earn through different style of contents, meta achievements, and so on that have been confirmed as well. One thing that I do have to point out is that you will have access to portals to these specific raids, which is great, but they will only be available if you clear them on Mythic.
Yeah.
Which, on one hand, I understand. It kind of goes hand in hand with the Mythic plus dungeon portals. Normally, if you clear them on plus 20, you get a portal to that dungeon, which is a great little reward for people who actually push themselves to clear the highest level of content, which is great. I personally hoped that this reward for the raid would be put on normal difficulty for most people, since I don't really see the intrinsic value of having a portal for a mythic raid, because once you clear the raid on mythic difficulty, the incentive to go back is way lower than somebody that has cleared it on normal and maybe would want to go further into heroic and then eventually maybe mythic. So I see that these portal rewards could be a little bit more redundant than they are in Mythic Plus, because Mythic Plus as a game mode is essentially made to be spammable, while raids are not really meant to be spammable. You go in the raid, you clear the boss, and usually that's it for a lot of people, or you maybe want to get that one item that's missing, and then you're done. That's not the case for Mythic Plus, so it works in Mythic Plus to get a portal a little bit later, since you end up playing even more after you get those portals for the majority of the time. But as far as raids are concerned, usually I don't see myself wanting to clear a Midrasil Mythic a second time after I cleared it once, especially
the whole thing about the portals is like these raids are the current raids, so they're all in the Dragon Isles. They're not that far away. I understand it's a bit, you know, it's like, oh my god, I gotta fly right now for a couple seconds to get to this raid, but it's not too bad. For Mythic Plus, I understand the portals are more of a reward because, you know, those dungeons are all over the place. They're in Kalimdor, they're in you know, Eastern Kingdoms, they're on the dragon, they're all over the world. But the raids are relatively close to Beldraken. They're not too bad to get to.
Since I have to wait 2 more weeks to do it, as just I don't know.
For farming mounts, you're right, Thunderfreeze. It is a good thing for that.
It's probably going to come soon anyway. But Season 4, with all of the changes to the dungeons, to the gear, to the accessibility, and to the player power, is looking to be the best season that we've had so far. We'll see how it plays out, because the game is actually doing better, since weirdly enough the devs are listening to people and they're kind of making changes to the game to bring it into a better state, which is something that Asmongold kind of talked about, and we made a video about it that you can check right here and see if the man is right, and if the game needs to change into a different direction that a lot of people disagree with to become more popular, more played, and bring more players in.
There it is. Yeah, I'm excited for Season 4. I think it's going to be a fun season. I'm excited for, you know, doing the little affixes on the raids. Those kiss curse things are a lot of fun to do. Faded raiding is pretty fun. The gearing out, like getting all your best in slot gear and everything, all that's going to be exciting, as it should be in the final, you know, as someone described in chat, the victory lap of the end of the expansion. Yeah, can't wait for it.